So there's a scam going on at the moment, and I consider it to be a far worse scam than free energy scammers who want a few dollars of subscription from you, and this is it. It's the Energy Saver plug, and it's been advertised quite widely at the moment by a company called Motex. Now, of course, Motex aren't the only people doing this, and if you put Energy Saver plug into an Amazon search, you'll get page after page after page of these things, and they range in price from about £6 to £30 for these things. And they're being sold, that's why they're there. So there's probably millions of pounds going in buying this sort of stuff rather than a few £100,000 for free energy scammers. It's just shocking how this has actually bought into people's imaginations and they're buying this thing. Now, people like Electro Boom and Big Clive have done some really great teardowns of these, and these are the same as you would see that those two guys did a year or 2 years ago. They've just come back. If you have a look at the advertising, which is quite often social media based actually, then they were doing that sort of thing. Poor young student develops wonder application, big oil company tried to buy him out because he loves humanity, he makes it free to everybody else with these plugs. Now what they're doing is wheeling out page after page after page of kindly old soul who tells you how much energy these have saved. There's loads of it. And it makes you wonder how on earth can so many people be buying into this, and of course they're not. Motex actually is mostly concerned with white badging this, that is they buy the product from China, and it was in fact a mosquito repellent. It was sold as a mosquito repellent. Put a badge on it, do a whole lot of social media advertising, and mostly they're generating that stuff and posting it themselves, and then of course advertising it on Amazon for sale and raking in the coin. Now, I'm not too interested in what the electronics of this thing is, because, I mean, it's what you expect, you know. And like I say, Big Clive and Electro Boom have done an awesome job of this. You pull it out of the box along. This adds insult to injury. There's a little blue plastic fish in here saying, surprise gift. Like, you know, they've done me a favour. You pull it out of the box and you get what you expect. A plug-in little device that's kind of clean and modern, and it's got the word intelligent on it. So intelligent, I mean, you know, intelligent is one of those buzzwords of our millennium, isn't it? I mean, we have intelligent and smart on everything. Smart watch, smart TV, smart fridge, smart water. Smart water! It's water in a bottle with the blue label. If you put intelligent on it, of course people are going to buy it, and they do, because there's a lack of understanding. That, if you plug it in, lights up green, isn't that cute? It's showing you that it's doing something apparently. If we pull this apart, which as I say other people have done far more successfully, what you get is a capacitor that's wired across the live and neutral, and a little circuit that lights your LED. There is nothing smart in there. It's essentially a simple power correction capacitor put across the mains. Now these things, they do save power. If you're running a load that is inductive, so like a motor, they will save you about 1% or something like that of the power that's being used. And if you think in your house you have lights, so your cooker, your washing machine, your tumble dryer, your fridge, your television, your computer, that's about it really, then most of the load is resistive. So if you're running your tumble dryer, you're running the resistive heaters, it's only the motor bit of it that is the inductive power of it, and it will save you about 1% of the power of that while that is actually turning on. And meanwhile, this thing is lighting up, consuming power, and in fact it consumes more power than it can possibly save in a domestic setting. In an industrial setting, incidentally, they do use these. They use these on motors all of the time because they have a large inductive load. In a house, your inductive load is tiny, and so you don't save that much when you plug them in, and in fact you save less than the energy that's used to light that green light, which is ludicrous. They'll cost you, in fact, at the end of the day. They won't save you anything. Now you can look into apparent power and real power and reactive power and try to understand why it is that these things work, and I think that's a really good thing to do, and there are people who can explain those sort of things much better than I, and have done so ad nauseum. What I'm interested in is, why does this thing work? Incidentally, I've got that apart. There's the little thing that was supposed to, it's like a speaker cover, supposed to repel the mosquitoes. Just stick a little badge on a mosquito repeller and reselling it. They don't work in terms of their function, they work in terms of being a scam, because it buys into our fears of things. That's where they're actually making their success. Now, I'm not a believer that people are essentially horrible. I believe that people are good. I believe that people are essentially good. And of course, we're distributed on a bell curve, and the bulk of people who are bang in the middle is essentially good. We have a whole bunch of people who are basically just saints, and then we have a little group of people at the end who are scam artists like this, who really, they will say anything. And it's inconceivable to us how they would say anything. It's like a politician with his hand in the cookie jar. While he's being filmed, while he's being interviewed, he's scoffing the cookies, and you say to him, you're scoffing the cookies, and he will look you straight in the eye and say, I did not have relations with that woman. It's difficult to understand how people can be such barefaced liars, but a group of people can be. And when they're like that, it's just hard to take on board that half a dozen people would sit and write 200 pages of emails, but they will do that. That gets dumped on, we read it, we believe it, because we can't believe anything else, and so we can buy into it. We buy into it because of our fears about things. Now, I look at my energy bill last month. It's £200. £40 of it was electricity and £160 of it was gas. The gas prices have been shooting up in Europe ridiculously. I have a friend who runs a factory, and his energy bill this month is €15 million. Last month it was €4 million. 6 months ago it was €500,000. It really has gone up like that. And of course we're relying on the Russians, who are telling us that they've got this massive reserve that is unconfirmed, and they'll sell it to us as long as the price is right and we don't interfere with what they're doing on the Ukraine border. And of course that creates a great deal of instability in a society. Those rising prices obviously have a knock-on effect on the cost of absolutely everything else that's produced, because it's industry that's suffering. And so we're seeing this massive spike in prices, we're getting an unstable condition, we're actually nervous about it because we haven't had situations like this since, well, really, in England it would be the winter of discontent back in the 70s when we had 3-day working weeks, and before that it was 1947 when we only had power for 6 hours a day. We kind of feel like we're returning back to that age, and those fears, particularly when we don't understand them, we look around for something to blame, and we do things like blame the government, blame the horrendous oil companies, that sort of stuff. We're looking for people that this might be responsible for, because it's, again, like the inside of this, it's just a capacitor across your live and neutral. It's actually quite simple. When I was a kid, the world population was about 3 billion. Now it's about 8 billion, and that's in a space of 40 years. The population has shot up like you wouldn't believe, and of course we're not producing that much more energy. Energy production's gone up like by 25%. No wonder there are shortages, and there are going to be shortages. The estimate is, if you wanted to cable India, say, to the same extent that England and the US were cabled, then it would use more copper than there is available in the world. And so it's a simple thing. There's just more of us trying to consume stuff that isn't available. And that's why there are shortages. Because those shortages lead to all kinds of crazy, but that's why. And of course, once we realise that, the solutions actually are, to my mind, more sensible. Things like don't consume as much, don't use as much, be more aware of what it is that you're using. Those kind of things are going to make bigger differences, because we don't want that. What we want is the same lifestyle that we've had, but we don't want to pay as much for it. And so these things, which seem to be that answer, are going to sell. And of course, they do sell. They sell to people in the hope that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to change your lifestyle, you don't have to consume less. All you've got to do is plug this in, and it's a magic pill that will save you from everything. And because that is where that scam actually operates. It operates based on what it is we're afraid of and what it is we hope to achieve. Whereas in order to avoid a scam like this, of course, what we really need to do is inform ourselves a little bit about what's going on in there, but only a little bit. what we really need to do, I think, is recognise the source of the problem. Because the source of the problem isn't everybody else. We're not very good at that. We're not very good at saying, oh yeah, that's me. I'm doing that. But that is where that problem comes from. It's the same problem as plastics in the oceans. The reason there are plastics in the oceans is because we buy plastic. We buy plastic bottles and chuck them on the ground. That's why. So if you don't buy plastic and you don't chuck it on the ground, there wouldn't be any plastic bottles in the ocean. If we didn't consume as much, there'd be more to go around. But they're uncomfortable things that we don't like, and so we'll buy a bit of junk like this. Quite happily spent £27 on this, incidentally. £27 on it, and cross our fingers and hope it works. And that's where the scammers gain their advantage. So if you don't want to be scammed, sure, learn about what's inside these things. But really, I think, without being too judgmental about it, there's a degree of our own responsibility that we have to take on these things for informing ourselves and for doing something about the situation. Anyway, thought I would share those ideas with you. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe.